لا يزال الخير حيا لا يزال إن في الدنيا سلاما وظلال.
So this early period of Islam, and even later on, the ruling still stays. So at that time, when the prisoners of war were captured, they could get away, they could become free men, if they educated 10 people. So this set conditions as to how you can obtain your freedom. So it wasn't like completely just behind bars or something.
You know, like recently I've been finding out a lot more about my ancestry. I'm Turkish, but I'm
Is that how you say it?
Well, like if you're a Muslim, you say Alhamdulillah in any situation. And then you say how are you, which is San Nasas. Yeah. So
nice place. I've been to Turkey. Yes. I've been
Istanbul. Have you been to the Blue Mosque? Yeah, that's what I was actually going to touch upon. You see, like this video that I watched, it was from it was an English guy that did the video, right?
Okay.
About the Ottomans, about how it started, etc. And obviously I'm British, I'm born and bred in London. So like I've actually, as a Muslim, not being the greatest of Muslims, but I've still held my faith and I'm still trying to find it. And inshallah, may Allah guide me. So basically, when I was actually watching it, the Ottoman Sultan Mehmet II,
yes.
right? He started something which I didn't actually understand, and I was speaking to my sister about this, about how he started taking people, like women, from other ethnic minorities and religions, and started to bewive them. And
started to
bewive them.
Just taking free people.
Basically, when you conquer, right, you take the women and etc. Right? He was taking like certain pretty women and like in his concubine, right? And in that concubine there was apparently hundreds of women, and whichever one he fancied, he would actually take them, bewive them, and have a kid.
Okay.
Right? I don't know if you know about this.
I haven't studied the Ottoman history.
But here's the question that I've got for you now.
What's your name, by the way, brother? Murat?
Yeah. And he started to bewive certain women that he wanted, so that he could have kids and then carry on his trade. And you see, in the video, what it says is that there was certain imams.
So who made this documentary?
This documentary, if you actually go on online and then write the Ottomans, right? I was just flicking through, and then I just see a video that caught my attention. It's about an hour long about the Ottoman history, how it began. It talks about the Ottoman Sultan, which was Osman. He started as a guy from a small village in Little Tribe, and then it actually grew from there, where other tribes were trying to attack him, and then he started gathering people, and then it grew and grew, and it started from Bursa, and then it expanded from there, where Bursa is the first place where we had a palace built, right? And it just grew from there, and then they started taking other people on board, but he was doing it for justice, for righteousness, to be able to live in harmony. So he started taking everyone on board, and then he got to a period where he was very, very big, as you know, the Ottoman Empire, right? And then he started to bewive these people. But the way that he mentioned the guy that was explaining about the Ottomans, the way that he mentioned it is he said that there were certain imams that actually joined him, and then he started a concubine where he was taking women on board and bewiving them and then making children. Now, I want to see what you thought about.
Well, I don't know, because to be honest, I don't know.
Is there such a thing like that?
Having harems and all? I don't think so.
This is
not something that is Islamic, to have a harem. You see this in Hollywood movies and all. Like you see this very rich sultans having a harem full of concubines and females and all that. Look, this is not.
I'm trying to understand the perspective that he's coming from, starting something like that, but being.
I don't think I know any of the righteous caliphs who had a harem of women, where they used to have lots of women and they used to enjoy them. This is something which came later on. So even if they did it, this is not something that Islam is a teaching from from the Sharia or recommended by Islam as such. Obviously, there are Muslims who have done this in the past, and this is, like I said, this is their own pleasures, their own whatever desires they had. This is entirely up to them. I mean, it's nothing to do, not the teaching of Islam. But in Islam, unlike the other,
but he was the head of an Islamic empire.
doesn't mean anything. You see, if he's the head of Islamic empire, it doesn't mean that he's someone who's a role model to us. Yes. For example, today you have people like the ISIS, and they claim that this territory of the Levant is going to become our territory, and I'm going to become the caliph of this particular nation, which they call the Islamic State. Yes, just because they have self-imposed themselves on this particular land and call themselves a caliph, doesn't mean that they are accepted by the Muslims. They might coerce some people and force them to accept them as the caliph, but this is not what majority of the Muslims accept. Most of the Muslims would say this has nothing to do with Islam. If they go and carry these killings, and if you look at most of the victims are Muslims.
For me, I find it preposterous.
It is, yes, it is.
Preposterous.
It is, because if you go about just killing people and collecting women as part of your harem, yes, this is completely something which is not what Islam has ever advocated. So you see, in the past you had other nations which are not Islamic and which did basically en masse collect slaves, for example. So if you look places like if you look in the Bible, for example, they had, for example, if you look at Numbers 31, you have Moses who killed every male, every female, every child of the Midianites, and he enslaved something like 31,000 females that were virgin. So little girls who were virgin, and most people who actually look at this and look at the history, they say that this was done as sex slavery. So you see, this is something you find in the Bible, for example. But in the Quran, it doesn't say go and collect some virgin girls somewhere. No, it doesn't say to kill women and children. But those who fight you, you fight them. But even those people who have fought you and then they stop. Yes, Allah says in the Quran, so if you read Surah chapter 60, verse 8, 9, I believe, you'll see that Allah tells them to escort them to a place of safety. So even those people who are fighting you, but now that they have stopped, do not go beyond the limits, Allah says. Do not basically commit a crime, which they call today, this is a crime, a war crime, to go and kill rampant, kill unnecessarily people, even if they are soldiers. But once they've given up, once they've said we want to now stop the war, we want to basically have peace with you, then escort them to a place of safety. Allah says this in the Quran. And these are people who wanted to kill you. These are the people who wage war with you. So if the treatment for people who wanted to kill you is such, can you imagine the treatment for women and children who are innocent? Now you see, this is it's a topic which I think today for you to understand, you actually have to look at the history books, because what many people do is they look at the standard today in the 21st century, and then they try to judge the time period 1,000, 2,000 years from today. Yes, you have to look at everything in context, because at that time they did not have like the United Nations, where the boundaries were set and you cannot basically go and invade another country. At that time it was basically might is right. So whoever was the strongest army, they would take the flag and hoist it in another country and it would become theirs. And this was not something that only the Muslims
Sorry, I'm cutting out you, bro.
Yeah.
You see, I've been told many times from different people, right, that are Muslims, that everything that we do is already written.
Oh, you're talking about the qadr.
Right.
Yes.
And if it's written, and we're going to be doing sins, i.e., right, how are we going to be judged upon something that's already written?
No, written doesn't mean Allah has imposed it on you. Written means a pre-knowledge. So, for example, if I asked you, if you asked your child, okay, what is your favorite toy? Okay. Yes, and he's going to tell you his favorite toy. But before he told you what was his favorite toy, you might already somehow assume that he was going to say this because you know him. Right. Yes, you see what I mean? That doesn't mean you impose that gift on him, did you? You did not somehow telepathically tell him to, okay, make sure you tell him, I don't know, whatever the famous toy now is. I don't know what it is. Might be some
I've got a little
some
nephew,
transformer
which
or
is
something
only
like that.
2 years old, and like I've bought him a car set. He likes cars.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But
So-
the other one, like he doesn't like anything at the moment.
Yes.
He's another 2-year-old.
So yeah, cars is a good. So for example, if your child likes Lamborghinis or something like that, and you buy him a Lamborghini before he tells you, okay, then does it mean that you're imposing this toy on him? No, it's not. It's because you, being his dad, already know what his likes and dislikes are. But you see now you replace yourself, or basically substitute what you as a dad did for your son, substitute that with Allah doing it for his creation. So if Allah knows the future, because you see Allah transcends both time and space. So we think in terms of future and past. Allah doesn't think. Allah is beyond time and space like the way we understand it. So we cannot say that Allah is already written for you to do a sin and you're going to do it. Allah knows you're going to do a sin, or Allah knows that you're going to do some good deed. It doesn't mean Allah forced you to do that thing. You see what I mean?
So
There's a difference
of choice.
Of course, you got a free will. At the end of the day, did anyone tell you to come to Speaker's Corner and talk to me? No, you came with your own free choice. Yes? And this is the free choice which everyone has, regardless of whether you believe in God or you're an atheist or agnostic. You have this free choice.
But he already knows what I'm going to do, right?
Pre-knowledge is not the same as Allah actualizing what you're doing forcing it upon you to do a certain thing. For example, did you feel that you were forced to come to this place?
No.
You didn't. So this is your free will which brought you here today.
Yeah, that's correct.
But Allah knew you were going to come here today. You see what I mean?
Right.
And Allah had written this long before you were even born. Long before this universe was created. Yes? Allah wrote all this. That means this is something that is a pre-knowledge. Remember I told you Allah transcends time and space? So we think in terms of future, past.
So it's all about controlling nafs.
It's all about you abiding by what the Prophet ﷺ and Allah has told you to basically. So if Allah and His Rasul told you to, is forbidden you something, prohibited you from doing something, then you should abstain from that. And you should do what Allah and His Rasul has recommended for you. It's as simple as that. Halal and haram.
How does it become a sin if he already knows when we go in front of him?
No, because you did it with your free will. Whatever sin or good deed you did with your free will.
How is it free will if it's already written?
Just like I told you. Just because Allah has written something thousands and millions of years ago, yes, doesn't mean Allah forced you to do it. It's something.
I can't like communicate the two logic together.
Why?
I mean, like you're saying it's free will. If it's free will and it's already written, that's not free will, is it?
Just like
it's predetermined.
No. Predetermined and pre-knowledge. You need to basically see the difference between what you, for example, the way you came to this park,
right,
and the fact that Allah has written already that you'll come to the park. Do you see any? Anything contradictory in that?
No, I don't in that explanation. But
so how would you, if you can reconcile this scenario quite easily, then why can't you reconcile the rest of it in the same manner? For example, if you were going to do a particular sin, yes, and Allah has already known that you're going to commit that sin, obviously Allah is not going to intervene in you doing a good deed and a bad deed if He doesn't wish to. Yes? So if you are going to do something, no one is going to force you to do that. And if you're going to do something good, do good, no one is going to force you to stop you from doing that good. You are going to do it based on your own free will, and Allah will test you on the Day of Judgment based on this free will of yours. Did I not give you...
Even though it's written, what you're telling me is that it's written in like that, obviously, because with my knowledge, with my capabilities, with knowing right from wrong,
yes,
right, I could actually commit the sin, or I can't commit the sin. So that's two paths, right?
And you have to make the choice.
I have to make the choice.
Absolutely.
But it's already written which way I'm going to go, right?
Yes.
So if it's already written which way I'm going to go, how does that still become a sin? Because obviously I'm making the judgment.
But you don't know
I'm making the judgment, but it's already written.
No, listen.
So if I'm actually going in that path, Allah Ta'ala, yeah, if He already knows I mean, like, how does that become a sin? Because he already knows that it's going to become a sin. How could I be...
Just because he knows it, for example, I'll give you another example. Take the example of a teacher and a student. Yes?
Right.
The teacher is teaching these students for the whole year. Yes?
Okay.
When the exam approaches, the teacher knows which students are going to fail and which students are definitely going to pass, based on the hard work.
But he assesses them beforehand, right?
No, hear me out.
Is that pre-assessment?
Hear me out. This teacher is only predicting who's going to fail and who's going to pass. Yes?
Right.
But that prediction is made on what? On the experience of the teacher for the whole year. She or he has been teaching those students. Yes? When the exam comes near and they have completed the exams and the results come, it apparently her prediction was exactly what she predicted before. Yes? That those students who were not working hard, those students who did not work hard during the whole year, they obviously failed because this is what was bound to happen. Now, just because the teacher predicted, let's say the teacher even wrote it down, yes, in her own little diary, that these X, Y, and Z students are going to fail. So these X, Y, and Z students are going to fail. She already wrote it down before they failed. Now, when the actual result came and they failed, would you say that is the teacher's fault?
No.
Why? The teacher wrote it down, just like God wrote it down. The teacher wrote it down that they are going to fail. Why don't you blame the teacher?
What about the people that she got wrong?
That's fine. The people that...
For
remember,
example,
she's not...
It's all based on IQ, right?
No.
It's all based on IQ.
Yeah, Murad, you need to understand one thing. For the teacher, you're right. It is possible for her to get things wrong.
Yeah.
Or get it right sometimes and get it wrong other times. But you see, in the case of Allah, the knowledge is absolute. So Allah knows when He knows something, He knows it for certain. So Allah will not make that mistake of probability, maybe He's going to fail, maybe He's going to pass. Allah knows this. But you see, because Allah has given you free will, just like you as a student had the opportunity for the whole year to either study and pass or do not study and fail. Yes? The teacher was your guide. The teacher told you what subjects to study in order to pass the exams, but you, because of using your own free will, you decided not to study those subjects. So this now is the scenario like the Prophet ﷺ. He came with a guidance called the Quran. The Quran is a guidance, and he was a guide. With his guidance and with the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, yes, if someone decides that no, they don't want to abide by what Allah has recommended for them, and they would do things which Allah has prohibited in the Quran, then it is their free will to decide in this earth. Because we, unlike the angels, the angels do not have a free will like us. So the angels, if they're told to prostrate to Allah from the time they were created until eternity, then they have to do it. They have no choice. So they cannot stand up and say, I'm going to protest against God, yes, and I'm not going to pray the way He does. Like the way the jinn, the shaitan did. You see, the shaitan was asked to prostrate to Adam when he was created. But he said, no, I will not prostrate to one who's created from dust. I'm created from fire. So his ego and his takabbur came out, and that is what proved detrimental to him. But a human being like the jinn is given the free will and the ability to choose. Either to choose to accept or reject the guidance that is given to him. So you see that student who was told for the whole year to study, but they did not study, and ultimately they failed, you cannot pin that on the teacher, can you?
No, you can't.
There you go. And the qadar works the same way. Is that clear? All right. Anyway, I think I have to go and pray Asr because they're doing that Asr. So inshallah, jazakallah khair for your time. Murad, right? Okay. Thank you very much for your time. You take care, my brother. Assalamu alaikum.